Making a plan. When it comes to the big events in life, it's always best to make a plan. Saving for university, buying a home, facing retirement. There's lots of things we can plan for, but we all know life often throws things our way that we cannot plan for, or we avoid planning for them because they're difficult, heavy, or sad, like serious illness, injury, and death. Yet because these are the biggest things that can happen in life, it's all the more important to anticipate them and make a plan now while we're able. The great thing about this plan is it can make those events much less traumatic and difficult for you and for those you love. The way to do this is with a process called advanced care planning, which results in writing a document called a healthcare directive. This lets your medical team and your loved ones know your preferences for medical treatment when you can no longer speak for yourself. Since it removes a lot of the guesswork out of these important decisions, your loved ones can then focus on being deeply present with you instead of stressing about what level of medical intervention you would want. I'm David Maginley. In my years as a hospital chaplain, I've come to see that a healthcare directive can be one of the most important documents that you ever make. It's actually a way to take care of your loved ones when you can no longer take care of yourself. In this video, we will explore advanced care planning and why it's important. We'll review what exactly a healthcare directive is, and I'll walk you through how to complete one. Finally, I'm going to share some resources to support you and your loved ones as you draft your healthcare directive. So let's dig in. What is advanced care planning and why is it important? Advanced care planning is a process of reflection and communication in which you let people know what kind of medical care you would want in the future if you are unable to speak for yourself. Advanced care planning is not about estate planning, financial preparation, or wills. It's also not a do not resuscitate order or DNR. That's a medical document specific to a choice when you're in the hospital. Advanced care planning is much broader and something that you can get to work on now while you are healthy. An outcome of your advanced care planning discussions is completing your healthcare directive. Your directive is a legal document that formalizes your wishes. Preparing your directive, then, is not something you do quickly, but through personal reflection, thoughtful conversations with those who would be involved in your care. So that would be your family, perhaps a friend, and of course your healthcare team. It's a way to hope for the best while preparing for the worst. This is why advanced care planning is important to everyone, no matter your age or your health situation. It could be among the most important discussions you ever have, helping loved ones and your medical team come together when life is coming apart. So let's look at the basic steps of the advanced care planning process, and I'll show you some of the resources that will help. Advanced care planning involves 5 steps. Think about a healthcare crisis, learn what can be done to make it as smooth as possible, decide who will speak for you when you cannot speak for yourself. Talk to your substitute decision maker, your family, and your healthcare team, and then record the decision in your healthcare directive. Let's explore these in more detail. Step 1. Think. Think about what makes your life meaningful. That could be spending time with family and friends, certain hobbies, practicing your faith, or simply time alone in nature. Think about what you value most about your mental and physical health. So this could be your ability to communicate, to function independently, or to have some privacy. Think about what would make life unacceptable to you. This touches on how dependent you would be on others, becoming unconscious, or having machines keep you alive. Think about what you would want others to know if you were gravely ill. This can include who you would want at your side, the kind of care and medical interventions you would desire. Think about what would make your death peaceful. Imagine the music, the sounds, and the company. Think of specific personal items like photos or a special blanket. Where would you want to be? In home? in a hospital or in a hospice. And this is the big one. Think about what you fear about dying. This could be suffering and pain, so a great conversation would be with your doctor to understand how pain could be controlled. For most people, what is most difficult is the burden of care upon their loved ones. Know that by making a healthcare directive, you're relieving that burden to a great extent. Grief, however, may not be something that you can relieve. That's okay. Grief is the price we pay for love. It's a noble quality of the human soul. Your advanced care plan can support healthy grief and an even deeper connection. That's a lot to think about, which is why it's best to do this before you're in a crisis. While the medical professionals are the experts in treating a medical condition, you will be the expert in the experience of that condition. It's important to know what you would want. Far from being morbid, this is a profoundly wise exercise that not only prepares you for death, but deepens your appreciation of and your engagement with life. Step 2. Learn. Learn what medical options are available to help relieve suffering. This step helps you identify goals of care. Now, these change as illness progresses. When I'm unable to speak for myself, at what point will medical interventions like dialysis, treatment in an intensive care unit, or being put on a breathing machine be helpful, and at what point will they be harmful? What's the actual purpose of medical treatment? The key here is to balance length of life with quality of life. Here's a chart that illustrates the matter. You'll notice that as you become more frail, intensive procedures decrease and the focus moves from fixing problems to keeping you comfortable. Sometimes you may want to consider a treatment for a limited period of time to determine its effectiveness. That might be phrased as, if I'm receiving life-supporting treatment and after 3 days there's no improvement, and the doctors are saying there's little chance of recovery to a good quality of life, then just make me comfortable and allow me to leave this world peacefully, comfortably, and held in love. With an advanced disease or a life-threatening injury, it may not be wise to do everything we can, such as being put on life support when life is no longer viable. That can actually cause more suffering for you and your family. Aggressive interventions like cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, may not be a wise choice when you're near the end of life. CPR is successful in an emergency when the heart stops, but the person's otherwise healthy. However, for individuals at the natural end of their life or who have a serious injury or medical illness, restarting the heart is not effective in over 95% of cases, and it can cause additional suffering. This is not giving up. It is opening up to the ultimate moment of life and ensuring that you experience it as smoothly and as comfortably as possible. So, learning what medical options are available to you helps you get a sense of what can be done compared to what you would want done. Talk with your doctor about this to get a good understanding of your goals of care. Okay, now that you've thought about what you would want done should you be facing serious illness or death, and explored what can be done to make it as smooth as possible, it's time for step 3. Decide. Decide who you would want to speak for you. This is your substitute decision maker, or your proxy. Your proxy should be someone of legal age, mentally capable, readily available, not restricted by a court order or a separation agreement, of course someone you trust, and it's good if it's someone you've had contact with in the past year. You can appoint more than one person as your proxy, each able to make decisions independently of the other in case one cannot be reached. You can also identify if your proxies are successive or joint. Successive means if one can't be reached, then the other will be contacted to be your decision maker. Joint means that 2 people will speak as your proxy together. People choose the option of joint proxies for several reasons. They might not want to hurt someone's feelings. They might tend to think of a couple as naturally going together. However, a word of caution, joint proxies can make things complicated, especially if they don't agree with each other. Then important decisions that will influence your suffering will be affected. That's going to be stressful for everyone, and it may result in your medical team making the decision. If you don't appoint a proxy, then it goes to the closest next of kin. So that could be your spouse, parent, child of a parent, a sibling, the next relative, and then it goes to a government department called the Office of the Public Guardian and Trustee. That gets quite impersonal, so it's best to choose someone yourself. Right, you've thought about what you would want in a medical crisis, you've learned what can be done to support you, and you've selected who would speak for you. Now, step 4, talk. Talk about all this with your loved ones, your doctor, your proxy, anyone who might be involved in your care. Talk with them about your wishes and go through the documents you filled out. Listen to their thoughts and feelings, and have the information you've gathered close at hand. Step 5, record your decisions. This will become your healthcare directive. Now, there are various websites where you can do this online. Print your healthcare directive nonetheless and give copies to your proxy, your family, your doctor, and stick one on the fridge because that's where paramedics commonly look if they have to come to your house in an emergency. You can even, of course, have one placed in your medical record. Okay, we've explored the 5 steps of advanced care planning. Think about what makes life meaningful if you were to become seriously ill. Learn what can be done to relieve suffering, decide who would speak for you, talk to everyone about this, and record your wishes in the healthcare directive. Clearly, this is going to involve some emotional, deep, and meaningful conversations. You may be wondering, how do I get started? Let's have a look at some of the resources that can really help. One of my favorites is advancedcareplanning.ca. Here you can find forums for individuals and families and professionals, videos, conversation starters, and even healthcare directives specific to your province. Here's a template for Saskatoon. It has a personal opening in which you write your name and your address, followed by a form for your proxy or substitute decision maker. Note that there's room for joint and successive proxies. Then it outlines 3 different situations that might arise. The first is diagnosis of an illness from which you're likely to recover. Then it identifies some of the interventions that you would accept or decline. This is a great example that shows how healthcare directives cover your wishes, and it's broader than things like a do not resuscitate order. The second example explores an illness that may take months or even years to recover from. Then again, identifying interventions. The third is if you have a terminal illness. This is the ultimate situation in which an advanced care plan can help your loved ones know that they're carrying out your wishes, especially if life support would be the only means to keep you alive. Again, it lists some interventions to consider. In all these situations, there's room to put down as many details as you desire, and you can add pages if needed. Finally, there's the signature page for you and your witness. At the end, there's even a small card you can cut out and place in your wallet for when you travel or in case you get in an accident. You record the name and contact information of your proxy on the back. When it's all ready, make a new phone contact and call it in case of emergency. Enter the name of your proxy there. Your proxy will make decisions based on what you've written down, what you've discussed, but not all situations may have been considered. And there may be situations where you receive medical interventions that you've stated that you do not want. For example, if you have a heart attack at home and the paramedics arrive without being aware of your healthcare directive, they may administer CPR. That's why it's important to have a copy at home and place it easily where it can be found. Again, having it on your fridge is a common recommendation. If you'd like support reflecting on the big questions as you prepare to fill out your healthcare directive, here's an example of a resource that I found to be really helpful. It's called What's Important to Me, and comes from a great website called planwellguide.com. This can assist you on reflecting on what you hope for and fear most at the end of life. Healthcare directives are valid only if they're signed by a competent person with normal cognitive functioning. That means you're thinking clearly and you can be responsible for your own decisions. If you are competent but unable to sign, another person who is not the designated proxy may sign the directive on your behalf. This person's signature must also be witnessed. Medical staff cannot witness the form. This is to ensure that there's no coercion or wrongful influence. They can, however, answer any questions that you may have, and that really helps, as they're the experts who can clarify the risks and the benefits of medical procedures near the end of life. As a healthcare directive is a really important legal document, let's identify some of the most common mistakes that I've seen people make when completing their healthcare directive. The first is not selecting the best person as their proxy. It can be difficult. You might have complicated family relationships, or your family may have different views and values than yours. In that case, it may be good to choose a good friend or a confidant who can carry out your wishes. Automatically choosing the oldest child or the relative that lives closest to you also may not be the best decision. You want a proxy who will act in your interests, who is best able to give instructions as your agent instead of decisions just based on their values and their beliefs. A second mistake is not using the healthcare directive to its full potential. Try to be specific about your wishes. Think about your goals of care and use the Plan Well guide to get insight on different scenarios. While you can simply use the checklist provided on many advanced care planning forms, it's much better to write out your thoughts and wishes in more detail. And that's only possible if you've really reflected on your values and what's most important to you. You've got to do your homework when you use the healthcare directive form to its full potential. A third mistake is putting contradictory statements on the form. For example, saying that you want to be on life support but you don't want to accept mechanical ventilation. Those two are the same thing. That's why it's helpful to go over your healthcare directive with your doctor and then sign it. Finally, and this is the most common mistake, many people start a healthcare directive but they don't complete it, or they just procrastinate about it and don't do it at all. The best time to do one is now, before a health crisis hits. You can update your directive at any time. Checking it every few years is a good idea, but also if you've had a death in the family, a divorce, if your health is in decline, if you've received a new diagnosis. Values, circumstances, and relationships also change over time. Your healthcare directive should reflect that. Destroy the old copies, then redistribute the latest version. Writing and updating your healthcare directive may not be on the top of your list. It's natural to avoid having these challenging conversations or contemplating illness and death. But remember, advanced care planning and writing your wishes into a directive is an act of love. It's a process that will open up deep and meaningful conversations, and believe it or not, it can also be fun. There's actually a game you can download from advancedcareplanning.ca. It's free. It's been really great at large gatherings and educational sessions and even death cafes. You might have one of those in your area. It's a place where people gather to talk about the ultimate event, how to face it well, the dimensions of grief, and the mystery of what lies beyond. These are not depressing events. They're really interesting, engaging, and often marked by a lot of laughter. There's other card games, of course, online. Explore, engage, and emerge wiser for it. Additional excellent resources can also be found at virtualhospice.ca. Here you'll find information on all the dimensions of end of life, frequently asked questions, videos, an online discussion forum. You can contact a professional, and you can hear other stories that are poignant and beautiful. There's resources on grief and a really creative section for teens and young adults facing advanced illness. By thinking about what's important to you, learning about what can be done in a health crisis, deciding who will speak for you, talking with that person, your loved one, your healthcare provider, about your wishes, and then recording your wishes in a healthcare directive, you're giving the gift of guidance, confidence, and strength to those closest to you in the event that you become ill. It's a way you can take care of them when you can no longer take care of yourself. This reduces the burden that they may face around medical decisions when all they really want to do is focus on you and pour in the love. It also opens deep conversations that help you come to terms with your mortality, and it amplifies the gift of life. It can actually help you live more fully and experience an unexpected lightness knowing this important matter has been taken care of. As a chaplain, I've always believed a smooth arrival on the other side is in their hands, but a smooth departure is in ours. When that day comes, as it will for all of us, I hope your advanced care plan helps you take off with as little turbulence as possible. Take care.